Hi, I am Carolyn Friedlander, and this is week 2 of the Alphabet and Shirts Quilt Along. Thank you so much for joining me. This week I'm really excited. We are going to settle into our projects and get going with them. But first, I wanted to share kind of what the last week has been like. First, one of the things that was pretty important for me was that I tied up some loose ends with some old projects. So you can actually see them hanging in the background there. I have a couple of dresses that are done, and I have actually worn both of them prior to this, but they both needed some buttons. That was the last thing. And sometimes, I don't know, a lot of the time, it's those last little things that really are hard for me to finish and kind of they just tend to take forever to do. So in this case, it was just adding buttons to those two dresses. So I got that finished. Not only does that feel good to finally wrap up on those projects, but it also allows me to clean up my sewing space, and that's important. So I was able to put away my sewing machine that I use for buttonholes, put to bed all of those supplies, and that's opened up my sewing table for new things, for the new projects ahead. So that's exciting. And now also I can wear those dresses wear them comfortably. When I wore them before, I just would I pinned the sides where it needed to be buttoned, and it worked okay, but having an actual button on there will make them much easier to wear. So you can look forward to hopefully seeing those this month. I will wear them for Me Made May. And let's see what else. So otherwise, I have been pulling fabrics for the projects this month. I have been pulling fabrics for my shirts blocks. So some of those, my shirts blocks are going to be a mix of things that I'm actually wearing as well as things that I made to wear at my wedding last month. And in fact, I already made the first 2 blocks of those. So I made 2 blocks that represented a dress that I wore and then a shirt that I made for my husband, Bobby. And that was, I don't know, I just think they're really sweet blocks, and I love that, actually they're right behind me. I've already put them on my wall. So I'm really excited about that. So that's the kind of stuff I'm pulling for my shirts project. So what I've done to prepare for that is I have pulled scraps from the clothes and the other kind of details from the wedding that I want to make blocks for. So I've kind of got a staging area for that. And then I also have scraps of other things. I guess I haven't pulled as many scraps for the actual clothes that I'll wear. I think that the more helpful thing that I've done is that I've put up my shirts blocks from last year. So kind of this top part behind me. Those are the shirts blocks from last year, and then these are the shirts I've made so far for this quilt along. And for me, it's just the shirts blocks that I'm making this year for clothes that I'm wearing. I don't want to do a lot of repeating. Of course, there will be some because I wear some of the same clothes all the time. You know, I have my favorites, but I see this as an opportunity to make some little mini shirt blocks for things that I maybe didn't make or didn't wear last year. So I've already had, a few shirts like that, including the one that I'm wearing today, which I'll skip ahead and show you. I've made a little block for. This is a top that I made with my Polk fabric release, and I actually really like this top. I just don't wear it very much. For whatever reason, I think it's more the style. I wear separates all the time, but this one, because it has these bell sleeves, which are really cute, and I really like the fit. But it is a little harder to work into my everyday wear. I think that I'm either wearing short sleeves because it's hot, or I'm wearing, I guess these are kind of billowy sleeves. I don't know, for whatever reason, this shirt has been a little harder to work into my everyday wear. So I'm kind of thinking, but I do like the pattern and I like the top. So I was kind of thinking when I put it on today, maybe if I made it with short sleeves, or maybe if I made it out of a fabric that was really light and flowy, it would be more comfortable to wear. Since it's pretty warm here in Florida most of the time. But either way, I made myself a little shirts block, and it's really cute. So that's exciting. What else? So that's shirts. In Alphabet World, I have a few different plans going on But this last week, one thing that I really wanted to do, I thought it'd be fun to do a little warm-up project. And so I pieced together You Are My Sunshine, which was one of my favorite songs as a kid. And I don't know, I just think it's a really sweet sentiment. And it was a nice small commitment thing to piece. It doesn't have a ton of letters, but there's enough to play around with. So that was really fun. And in doing that, I was just kind of thinking that it could make a really nice gift for one of my nieces. I think I might turn it into a little pillow. I don't know. Now I'm kind of thinking it was fun to do just like a little kind of palette cleanser like that, where it's just kind of a self-contained project that was kind of easy to put those letters together pretty quickly, but just really creatively satisfying because it's kind of a self-contained project that I worked from my scrap bin, and it was fun to just play with different colors and see them come together. So yeah, I pieced together the You Are My Sunshine, and in doing that, I could make it a little pillow. I think that would be really sweet. And I was thinking I could do a little saying each week, and it doesn't have to be multiple words. It could be one word or whatever that I could turn into little pillows, or maybe a wall hanging. That could be nice. Or maybe at the end, it could be a collection of phrases that maybe I turn into a quilt. I don't know. We'll see. This one, I have the different letters. They're still individual, so I need to sew them together, and I'll probably make them into a block and leave that option. You know, I'll leave it kind of to where I can decide down the road whether I want to sew it into like an individual thing, like a little pillow, or include it in kind of a bigger project like a quilt. So that's that. And let's see, what else? The other thing with Alphabet is that I am going to be finishing this twin size quilt that I started for my other niece. So I kind of took this little You Are My Sunshine project as, again, kind of a little warm-up, easing myself back into Alphabet, having a little fun with it, playing with the fabric, playing with the colors. Sometimes it's really nice just to do some piecing, so that helps satisfy that. Last week, I challenged you to dream big, and I hope that you became very inspired and that you got a lot of ideas flowing. This week, I think it would be really good to really settle into those fabrics and really settle into the projects that you're wanting to make. So for me, one thing that I have done is I grabbed a bunch of fabrics, a bunch of scraps. I've got them here right by my sewing machine, and I have them on a tray. And I did post a picture of these on my Instagram, but this is just kind of a catch-all of scraps organized by color that I have by my sewing machine, and I've literally just been like grabbing it, twisting over to my piecing over here, and pulling the fabrics for each of the letters for my sunshine blocks. So that's been really helpful. I also have, as I kind of mentioned, I've got a stash of fabric started for shirts blocks that I want to make. So yeah, this is the time to kind of get your station set up, start grabbing the actual fabrics, and get things in place. The other thing are your templates. So for Alphabet, I have printed out a whole stack of those, and I'll add that I got a suggestion, I don't know, somewhat recently, to someone was asking about having individual letters on each page. So, you know, an entire, and this is just for the smallest letter size, because the medium and large sizes, you don't fit very many on a page, but with the smallest letter size you can. So I did add a new file to the pattern where all of the letters are individual on the page. So you've got a whole page of A's, you've got a whole page of B's, and I have to say it did make things a lot easier for cutting out my You Are My Sunshine. I just kind of went through the whole stack and cut them out. So you'll see I'm missing some from the pages. But anyway, I've got my stack of templates ready to go for Alphabet, and then I also have my stack of templates ready to go for shirts. So I've got that set up. I have my ironing next to my cutting table and my light table. I've just kind of got everything kind of triaged, where all I need to do is just set into my seat and get sewing. So One thing that, as far as planning goes this week, as I've mentioned my different goals for this month, which are kind of materializing, especially with like the little alphabet thing. I think I am starting to get a feel for how I'm going to be bouncing around between all of these different projects. I know that some of you might have just one focus for this quilt along, which is great, but definitely in reading some of your comments, I'm seeing that some of you are also taking on different types of projects this month as well, all at the same time. So that was exciting to see, because it's kind of how I work. It's nice having different things to focus on when, I don't know, it's just nice to have it's nice to have an option. So for me, some of the projects and goals this month have been pretty clear-cut, whereas other ones I've needed to kind of settle into the specifics on them. And this last week has really helped me with that. So, but moving forward this week, I'm also going to pay a little bit more attention to making a plan for the twin-size alphabet quilt that I'm planning to make for my niece. I have all of the blocks pieced. I need to add borders. I need to quilt it, and then I need to bind it. So I am going to map out milestones, those milestones, and kind of put those in the calendar so that I know I'm gonna make my mark by the end. So that's one of my challenges for you. If you know what your endpoint's going to be, kind of work back from there and plan it out so that it'll work out. So maybe these next couple of weeks, you'll be making your blocks, and then the next week sewing together a quilt top, and then at the end, well, the second to the last post, we're going to be talking about quilting and finishing, but that's the timeline. So you can kind of get yours more specific to what you're setting out to do. All right, so next I have some tips, and since we're starting to sew this week, since we're getting into those fabrics, I wanted to talk about fabrics and foundation paper piecing. So both alphabet and shirts are foundation paper piece projects, and one thing that I love about foundation paper piecing is that you are sewing on to the paper foundation, so that really helps stabilize your project. I love that. That makes it so much easier to work with different types of fabrics. So if you know, for example, quilting cotton is kind of that very familiar fabric that probably most of us use most of the time. And quilting cotton is perfect. It's great to use for your projects. It's not too thick, not too thin. It's very stable. But it is also fun to incorporate other types of fabrics into your projects. So like linen and linens, and I don't know, I've used silk, I've used a bunch of other things. But foundation paper piecing is a really great technique to help make combining those different fabrics easier. And that's because of the paper foundation. When you're sewing into it, it just helps stabilize your block and neutralize those differences. So that's one thing I want you to keep in mind. And then related to that is that, like, especially if you're making shirts, and if you're making shirts from garment fabrics, that really opens up the potential a lot more for different types of fabrics, because, you know, with garment fabrics, those qualities can run the gamut of, you know, thick to thin, drapey, stretchy, all of that stuff. Again, foundation paper piecing is great. It's really going to help stabilize those different fabrics. And for me, I'm open to using most any of them. The only fabrics that I haven't used or really choose not to when I'm foundation paper piecing are knit fabrics. They're just a very different type of fabric, and you could if you really wanted to, but I've basically stuck to woven fabrics for my shirts blocks, and I'll continue to do that. And one thing that I did last year, because I did wear, you know, I wear t-shirts all the time, so I'm wearing knit fabrics a lot, and I did want them to inspire some of the blocks last year. So what I did, instead of using those exact knit fabrics or incorporating jersey itself, I took it as a creative challenge to capture the essence of that fabric. So be it the color, the pattern or motif that's in the fabric. I think that it's a really fun creative challenge to do that. And I really enjoyed trying to find fabrics that kind of represented my t-shirts that I really liked or other knit fabrics that I was wearing. So I think that can be really fun. And I was looking back on these shirts earlier and trying to remember which things it's those blocks that you kind of look at and you're like, oh yeah, that represented that pair of shorts, or that represented this shirt, or whatever. So I think that can be a really nice detail to play with in your blocks. Otherwise, and especially so this time I am incorporating some dress fabrics that are pretty, like, I have a rayon. One of the dresses back here is a rayon, and it's very drapey. It's so comfortable to wear, but it's not one that I would want to like piece with normally. So if I weren't piecing with a paper foundation, I wouldn't want to piece with it, but because of foundation paper piecing, it does make it a little easier. So that's probably the drapiest thing I would use, and it is very drapey. But I'll be doing that with my shirts block, rayon, linens. I don't know, those work great. So just take advantage of using that paper foundation and it'll make it a lot easier. I do have a good tip for you. If you're using garment fabrics that might be a bit slippery, they've got a bit of a drape to them, or maybe you're piecing a piece that you're just having a hard time positioning it in place, I like to use a long basting stitch to hold that fabric in place temporarily to the template. So instead of, you could use, I know some people like using a glue stick, or maybe you want to pin your fabric to the paper. I use this long basting stitch, so I lengthen my stitch length to like a 5mm, so it's a very long stitch. And then I just stitch a few different places in the block. So I actually did it here on this part. You can see right here some of my basting stitches. And the nice thing about that is it holds. Okay, there are a few nice things about that. One, it doesn't require an extra tool. You're already at your sewing machine, so you're just going to use your sewing machine, change the stitch length. Two, it keeps everything nice and flat. So if you're using pins, that's going to add a little bit of dimension to your project, and it might throw some things off. So I like that this makes it nice and flat. And then third, it is so easy to remove. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that out now, and it comes out no problem. So I love that. I mean, in general, I'm very cautious with adhesives. I don't use them unless there's really no other alternative. And for me, the basting stitch, it comes in handy every time. So yeah, that's my tip. And last, I thought it'd be fun to share some things from you from the last week. I really have been enjoying reading your different comments, so I thought I'd read just a few. One says, making shirts to get me into a cheerful spring and summer frame of mind. Yes, I love that. I am definitely we're full on summer here. It's gotten pretty warm, but there's something satisfying about sewing these little shirts, especially if it's a garment that you already have. I mean, I'm pulling things out of the closet, and it's fun to put them on and wear them, and then sewing the block just, I don't know, it gets you excited about getting dressed, which sometimes can feel like a chore, so that's good. Let's see, using cute flower fabrics to make shirts. That's what someone else said. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Another dress that's over there is made from Liberty, and so I'm excited to make a shirt block with that, which is a floral fabric. I don't know, these shirts are just so cute that, yes, I love the idea of using cute little flower fabrics. I think a whole month of just doing little flower fabrics would be really, it'd be so pretty. Okay, I like seeing that others are dreaming up too many projects and seeing how it'll go. I loved reading this comment because that's exactly how I operate as well. And there's something about a quilt along that you're seeing what everyone else is making. I mean, I'm already coming into a quilt along with a lot of ideas of what I want to make. But then seeing how other people are putting things together, it's just like really motivating. And yeah, I like adding to the project dreams. So I get that. Here's another one, making an heirloom gift for a new member of the family. That's really sweet. Of course, I am using dress fabrics for my wedding, so I am thinking about my quilt as a bit of an heirloom or a memory quilt as well. And last week I kind of realized not only I'm excited to be making the shirts blocks, but then I realized I could use my applique hearts pattern as well. I think that would be a really good memory quilt. So I don't know. Like I said, it's the snowball of ideas once you kind of get started. But I think that's a good thing. The shirts are so cute. I want to use my scrap pile to dig into. So that's a lot of scrap sewers in this quilt along. I am doing that too. The nice thing about scraps, or one reason why I really like working with scraps, is that they feel less intimidating for some reason. You know, like if you are working from yardage, or oh my God, like a pristine fat quarter bundle or something, it feels too precious to touch. But scraps just have this like very welcoming, they're just so welcoming. They're very, I don't know, it's just nice. So I'm loving that. And then someone else said, learning how you make decisions. So I hope that in letting you in, and that is a goal, like I really hope that in this quilt along, you're able to kind of get a little peek into my thought process and kind of how I'm ebbing and flowing in different directions, and how I kind of start to pull that together. It is really fun to see how everyone works and to let each other in on the process. So yeah, I hope that helps. I hope that I hope that you enjoy seeing into my world a little bit. Okay, and then last I'm going to finish with a question from one of you, and it says, what sewing machine needle do you recommend? Going to start on my alphabet quilt next week. So I thought this was a good question. In foundation paper piecing, you know, you're sewing through fabric and you're sewing through paper. I use just a regular quilting needle. I think it's a 9014, and that seems to work fine. I will admit I don't put a fresh needle in. I mean, I don't ever use a needle that is dull and noticeably like marring or messing up the fabric. But a lot of times what my kind of system is that anytime I'm going to quilt a quilt, that's a fresh needle. Fresh needle for my quilting a quilt. And then after I've quilted that one quilt, I'll use that needle for foundation paper piecing. Because going through the paper, it's going to dull your needle a little bit faster. And so, I don't know, I guess ideally use a fresh needle however many hours or whatever, but that's just the system I use. It works well for me, but don't hesitate to change out your needle if you're ever seeing, you know, it's pulling your fabrics weird or messing up your fabrics in any way. It's always just easy to change out the needle, so make sure you've got something fresh in there. All right, well, I look forward to seeing more of your projects. Don't forget to use the hashtag CFAlphabet and CFShirtsofShirts. You can also tag me. That's the best way to get me to see your project. I'd love to see it. And you can follow along here on my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss anything. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again next week.